Hello, thank you for watching my channel today. My name's Sarah and my channel is called Your True Shelf. And as you may be able to hear, my voice doesn't sound quite normal today because I've had a cold since Boxing Day. It's been going around our whole household and it's just deciding to stay here and not disappear yet, which is quite annoying. So I don't have a sore throat anymore, but I just sound bunged up and a bit hoarse. Not quite my usual self, so apologies for that in advance. Secondly, thank you to everyone who has subscribed to my channel over the last few days. I've had a bit of a jump in subscribers since doing my last video, which is so nice to see. So thank you if you're new here, and thank you if you're coming back, because that's even better if you chose to return. Welcome to my corner of Booktube, and I hope that you like it here. So I wanted to do this video as a little bit of a sort of a wrap up of the year and a looking forward to 2025. I wanted to talk about the good things that have happened in 2024, my bookish favourite memories that have happened, a little bit of the stats, not too heavy on the stats because I don't want it to become like a PowerPoint presentation, and then thinking forward a little bit about what I would like to do in 2025 in terms of my reading goals, really. And so let's start with my bookish highlights of the year. I need to sit back because I'm getting closer and closer to the camera. First of all, I have met some booktubers in real life, which I try to do every year, and it's so fun, like meeting up with people. But this year I met up with, Karen from Roving Reader came to stay with me over the summer, which she has done for the last couple of years and is planning to do in 2025 again, I believe, which will be lovely. I have met up with Simon from Savage Reads, and that was so nice because we started talking online when the very start of when Simon used to do the Readers podcast, and I think that was around about maybe like 2010, something around that time, maybe even earlier than that. I know I was a junior doctor, but anyway, we've chatted for a lot of years online, and this was the first time that we met up in person, and it was so fun. We just laughed basically for the whole time. We went out for a meal and we just chatted until they kicked us out because they were closing, and I feel like we could have chatted for hours more because he's so easy to talk to, and we just had so many laughs. And we only got one photo, which was when it was the end of the night, and I was driving him back to where he was staying, and we were in the middle of a giggle, I think, at the time, so it's not the best photo. We should have taken one at the beginning of the night, but we just had so much fun, so that was a real joy. I met up with Heather from Too Many Heathers in Cardiff very briefly this year. I came to Cardiff for the Speedway and I was very late because the traffic was terrible, and so we didn't have very long at all. We only had about an hour together, but Heather was very generous with her time anyway and came to meet me, even though it was just for a short time, with Anwin. I also met up with Jem from Gem of Books. We live not too far apart and we met up in the middle of where we live, and I brought my kids, she brought her littlest kid, and they had a play date in the park while me and Gemma had a lovely chat and a picnic, which was really, really nice. I have met Jem before, but yeah, we should try and do it on the regular because we don't live that far apart, which is really lovely. And then also Mercedes, I meet up with Mercedes on quite a regular basis now. We have become friends in real life, and we tend to go and do board game stuff or go out for like vegan food and stuff with another friend, Jenny, who has a wonderful podcast called the Bookcast Club, which is a nice segue into my next highlight, which was being on a couple of podcasts. So the first one was the just mentioned Bookcast Club with Jenny. So I will link all of these channels and all of the things I'm mentioning in the description box down below. The podcast is brilliant. So there are three permanent hosts at the moment, Jenny, Sarah and Belle, and they have guests, and I have been a guest twice. The first time we talked about 5-star reads, then we talked about memoir. I've been 3 times actually, and we talked about the Women's Prize when that was a current topic. And yeah, it was really fun. And I now have a proper podcast microphone, just in case I get invited back again, so that I don't sound like I'm on the telephone rather than on a podcast. And yeah, that was really fun. And I think trying something new like that was a good experience as well. And then the other podcast which I went on was one called Bedside Reading, a lovely podcast which is about books and how they can relate to our experiences as healthcare professionals. But it's definitely not just for people who work in healthcare, because it's basically talking about themes of health and human condition and illness and people's experiences and everything in books. But definitely you don't have to be a doctor to appreciate it. And the podcast is hosted by Tara Jones, who is a great host, so I'd recommend you having a listen to that as well. I did an episode again where I read all of the books on the Women's Prize shortlist and spoke to Tara about my experience with those. One of my other highlights in terms of the bookish year was being on the Women's Prize Plod Along, which was at the time hosted by Gemma from Gem of Books, Charlie from Charlie Book Reads, and Alice from Alice of the Giant Bookshelf. As I'm sure we all know, Alice really sadly died last year, and so Charlie and Gemma have bravely gone on without Alice. But I was so fortunate to have 2 plod along experiences with Alice, and had a great time. So I had Roz from Scallydandling about the books as the other guest on the episode which I was on, and it's so fun doing that. If you ever get a chance to be on one of the plod alongs, then take it, because it's such a good thing to be invited to, and Gemma has invited me back for this year, so I will be appearing again, and just such a lovely experience. And thank you very much to Gemma and Charlie for asking me to come back and be on it again. So let's move on and talk about a few of the stats before we go on to talk about the goals. So I've pulled my stats from Storygraph mainly, but I do also use this. So this is my current bullet journal. I love bullet journaling, and I keep all of my bookish things in here. So for instance, I will do my best books of the year space. This is 2023. So you can see I won't put 2024's up, just because if you haven't watched it yet, go and watch it. But this is my 2023 books of the year, so I can easily flick back and think, oh, what did I like the best last year? This is my TBR Spin sheet that I made last year, which I will talk about again in a little bit. So each month, just for example, this is July from last year, for instance, right? So I do a little cover page. I always copy these from other people on Pinterest, so I don't know who made this, but I did not design this myself. So yeah, I do that, and then I do a little thing. So I've got the films I watched in that box, the series I watched in that box. This is the books I hauled, and this is the books I read each month. So I can easily look back and see when I read something, etc. But the other thing I track is how much I buy. So this is my 2024 hauls, and it actually went up to how many did I get up to now? Because I had to do another page. It went up to 84, so I hauled 84 books last year. In my defence, a lot of them were actually given to me by other people, not bought myself. So when I've read them, I highlight them. So as you can see, I've done terribly at reading the books that I bought this year. But if I look at a previous year, so like this is 2023, you can see that I've read quite a lot more of those books. I will do spreads like, for instance, this is 2022. This is like my favourite booktubers' favourite books. So I always make this every year, which is basically every booktuber that I subscribe to who does a favourite books of the year. Any books of theirs that I own, I will then put on a little thing, and I'll colour them in when I've read them. So that's another thing I like to do. I've gone off on a bullet journal tangent, haven't I? Why did I even get my bullet journal out? I think it was to talk about my stats. It was to talk about my stats. So yeah, I bought 84 books in this year. I read 101 books this year. No, I didn't. I read 91 books this year. Yes, I read 91 books this year. Of which was 29,359 pages. So that's obviously important, because some people have read more books than me, but less pages, and other people have read less books than me but more pages. And so I think the pages is really the relevant thing, even though we all count the books. I set my reading goal last year to reading one book, and I have carried that into this year because I don't want to be dictated to by numbers. So in previous years, I've done like, I want to read 100 books. And then I think, oh, Storygraph's telling me, oh, you're 4 books behind. So I really wanted to read this book, which is quite a chunky book, but I can't because if I read that book, then I won't get the numbers up. And that's not how I want to live my reading life. So someone else, I'm not sure who it is, sets their reading goals to 1. It might have been Lauren from Lauren and the Books in previous years, I'm not sure, but someone was setting their goal to 1 and I thought that's perfect because then I hit my goal in like a couple of days and I don't have to think about numbers for the rest of the year. From Storygraph, I mainly read emotional and reflective books. I would say yes, that is very true. That's what I like in a book. Pacing wise was medium paced was my most common pacing of 59%, and then I had 20% each of fast paced and slow paced. Page count, I was a bit surprised because I thought I read longer books mainly, but Storygraph says I read, so over 500 pages was only 5% of my reading, and the others was completely split. So less than 300 pages was 47%, and 300 to 500 pages was 47%. And I think possibly that's because of Shorty September, where I tend to read obviously a lot of short books for Shorty September. 24% of my reading was non-fiction. So I don't have a non-fiction goal. I just really sort of read what I fancy, and I do really like non-fiction, and so I wasn't surprised that a quarter of my reading for the year was non-fiction. And my top 5 genres were historical, literary, contemporary, romance and fantasy. They were my top 5 genres. I read 59% of my books in print, 34% were audiobooks and 7% were Kindle books. And my average rating was 4.02, which I think is great. I had 1.5 star book and 16 5-star books. So yeah, I think, like I said before, ratings are quite arbitrary, but we all do them. And I like seeing what people rated different books. So that's the stats out of the way. Goals. So this is the goals spread that I made for last year. This year, my biggest thing that I'd like to do is to focus on my series. So I've mentioned this a few times now. I have gone a bit mental in terms of series buying. I haven't bought entire series without reading the first one, because that would be a bit of a risk. But I have bought lots of first book in a series, especially from fantasy, and I am really excited to read these. But what I used to do was I'd read book 1 and then I'd read book 1 of something else and I'd read other things, and then about a year would go past. I think, oh, I don't think I can remember enough of what happened in book 1 to read book 2, so I'll just I'll just pause that series for a little while. And then I just got into the kind of muddle of being in that book 1 only trap for all of my series, and so I have decided a few months ago that I want to focus really hard on the series, and I'm really excited to do that. So I've already finished the Brown Sisters trilogy by Talia Hibbert. I made progress in Akatar, and I am currently finishing the Wolf Den trilogy. So I am sticking to my guns on this one. I've made a big spreadsheet of all of my series, which books I own, which books I've read. And I have also picked all the book 2s off my shelves and moved them onto my book cart next to my bed, so that I remember to, because I want to kind of finish off those series before I then start new series, otherwise I'm going to be back in the same position again. And so that's a really big goal I want to focus on. I'm really excited for that one. My other big goal is to do TBR Spin, because I love TBR Spin. So I will explain it again just in case you don't know what it is. It's hosted by Sarah of Freshly Read Books. If you're not subscribed to her, go and subscribe immediately, because she's one of my favourite channels on Booktube. She is doing this on her own this year. So she used to do it with Jill of Book Bully, but now she's doing it by herself, and so she's mixed up the format a little bit, and we're going to have a live stream every month, which is really exciting. So all you do, you can join at any point in the year. You pick 12 books if you're starting in January. If you're starting in February, say you'd pick 11. You pick that number of books from your shelves and you have them in a little pile, and you keep that pile somewhere. And then each month we get a live stream video where Sarah will talk about the book that she's just finished for last month. She'll spin a wheel and it will pick a prompt, and say it might say, like, for instance, the prompt for this month was the book you're most excited to read from your stack. So that was nice and easy. Sometimes it might be a prompt where you think, oh, nothing really on my stack fits that prompt. So what you have to do in that scenario is remove a book of your choice from your stack and swap in a book which does fit your prompt. And so that's why it's quite good, because your 12 books you start with might not be the same 12 books that you read over the year. And then the aim for now is, when she does the reading sprints, is we're going to start reading the book that we just picked from our stack during the reading sprint. So it worked really well for January. I've already about 2/3 of the way through my January book, and I am loving the new format. And I would highly recommend, because it's a really low pressure challenge and it's really fun, because you get to choose the 12 books. So you're like, I really want to read these 12 books this year, and then see what happens. So that's my plug for TBR Spin. So please go and join. I'll link all of the information for that in the description box as well. The other reading challenge that I would like to do this year is the Ben Reads Good challenge. So I did this last year. I managed to do 10 out of the 12 prompts, so I thought that was quite a good effort. And this year, Ben's kept some of the favourite prompts, and he's mixed up and put in some new ones as well, which are exciting. And I really love choosing books for prompts. And both Sarah and Ben have done Storygraph challenges for these, which is really good, because you can think, what books fit that prompt, and you can add, like, if you've got 7 books that might fit a prompt, you can add all 7, and then you can just pick which one you're going to read. I think it's a really fun way to do it. You can also see what other people have suggested for each prompt, so if you're a bit stuck with one, then you can look what other people have suggested and see if you own any of those books already, and that kind of thing. So that's another challenge that I would like to do this year. And that's all I'm really signing up for, because I don't want to take up all of my space by designated reading. I enjoy buddy reads, and I still want to do my buddy reads. So myself and Joe do most buddy reads together. We were doing one buddy read a month together. This year we've decided we're going to slow it down a little bit, just because we want to leave enough room for spontaneity, and also Joe does multiple buddy reads at the same time. She's some sort of like miracle buddy reader, and so yeah, I think we're just taking it easy on buddy reads, but we're still going to do them. And I've been reading, as you all know, the Bookish series by Amanda Scott with Aaron from Aaron Read a Book, or Aaron Read a Book. And that's been really fun as well. So I'd like to definitely continue doing buddy reads this year. I'd like to carry on focusing on backlist books as well as series, because I've still got some books on my TBR from forever ago. I have done a massive TBR spreadsheet, and I've colour coded it by what year I added the book to my TBR, so I can see how many really old books from my TBR, and sometimes I end up unhauling them because I just think my taste has changed, but I still like focusing on books that I've had for too long on my shelves. I want to be more spontaneous with my reading, and one of the things that I think that we all find massive joy from is when we go to a bookshop or a library and we get a book and we start reading it straight away. There's nothing like the feeling of when you're really hyped about a book and you start reading it straight away, rather than letting it languish on your shelves for ages. And something like that is just fun, and having room for spontaneity I think is really important. And then the final thing, which is a bit of a change for me, I used to be a person who only had one physical book and one audiobook on the go at any one time. And then I found that my friend Jo, who I've mentioned a couple of times now, she has lots of books on the go at a time, sometimes 10. And I would never have done that before, but Jo's slowly kind of taken over my brain, and she's basically like made me see the benefits of multi-reading. And so, like, for instance, it's nice to have a Kindle book on the go so that I can take it out and about with me more easily, and have a book that I might be a non-fiction book and a fiction book and an audiobook, and I might have several books on the go at once. And the good thing about that is, if I'm not in the mood to read the book that I've been focusing on the most, I might then want to think, well, actually, I'm actually really in the mood to read this book and pick up one of the others. And I actually like doing that. I think I would have at one time found that stressful, whereas now I just find it gives me options, which is nice. I wouldn't choose books that are really similar. Like I probably wouldn't have 2 fantasy books on the go at the same time or 2 romance books, because I'd be worried that I'd mix up the plots. But I like having different genres on the go or different formats on the go at the same time. So I'd like to carry that on. I think that's about it really. I didn't really think this video was going to be quite so long as it has been. I feel like maybe it's got a bit jumbled and chaotic, so I apologise if that's the case. I feel that I made what sounds like a lot of goals and then said I wanted to be spontaneous, but I don't think really they are. I mean, having like multiple books on the go, doing 2 reading challenges, doing some buddy reads, focusing on my series, that's like the main things I want to do. So yeah, if you've got a video similar to this that you'd like to tell me about, then I will be happy to go and check out your goals. If you want to tell me what your goals are, because you don't have a channel, I would love to hear from you. And if you have any thoughts on what I've rambled on about for the last half an hour or so, I would also love to hear that too. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here. Please consider subscribing if you like watching my content. And I hope that you have a really, really wonderful 2025. I hope it brings you lots of joy from reading. And I will speak to you all soon. Bye.